Hey y'all, I am super happy to be back today to teach you guys how to join your hexagons for the Dutch Rose blanket crochet along. You might already know what whip stitch is. You can take a look at my blanket and it doesn't look like a whole lot now, but it's going to be small and it's really a mess, but that's okay because sometimes in the creative process it looks like a mess. But you probably have seen whip stitch before, and I just don't know if you've done it the way that I do it. So I'm just going to teach you the way I do it. You can join your hexagons however you like, as long as it doesn't create a whole lot of space in between your motifs. So what you want to avoid is like a big join that's going to leave like this much space in between your motifs, like a DC join. You could do a join as you go, but I would do it on the last round, the single crochet round. If you've done all of your motifs already and you're like, oh, now I don't want to add, a another round on all of them, then maybe you could just like crochet them together. You could always use go through back loops only, whatever you would like to do, as long as it's more like that, really close together as possible. That way, whenever you do the border and everything, you won't have like all this puckering and weird stuff happening. So what I'm going to show you though for recommended for the actual pattern is whip stitch, and maybe in a different way than what you're used to. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of having you guys just Google whip stitch and do it, I'm going to show you how I do it. And I do have a video that's whip stitch for hexagons. However, that one assumes that you're just doing like one solid color for the whole thing, like that you're doing it after everything is done. And this one works with the tails. So not much different, but I'll just show you guys anyway, since I'm using my Shave Just Our Tribe, and it's my Dutch Rose blanket. So I wanted to show you guys exactly how it will look when you're doing it. So what you're going to do first, it doesn't matter if the tail you're using is on the front motif closest to you or on the back motif. So I do have a tail, I think. Maybe I don't. Let me make sure. I thought I had a tail on this one. Oh, okay, no. It's just this piece right here. But you could use either it doesn't matter where your tail is located, is what I'm saying. So mine is going just like this, and I worked it to where the tail, I've positioned my hexagons to where the tail is in the exact corner where I'm going to be joining, just like that. Whoop. Also, it doesn't matter which direction you're going to be whip stitching. You can go like that way or that way, because either way, you're just going to hold two motifs with the wrong sides facing together. And then you're just going to take either the tail from the front or the back and just pull it through and just start whip stitching. So all of those little details are not going to matter once you start getting into it. Okay, so my first little single crochet is right there. I'm going to insert the hook through both loops. A lot of times when I've seen folks whip stitching, they only go through one loop because they want to leave like the front loops showing or something. So for my recommendation, it's going to be to go through both loops of both motifs. So I'm in my first stitch, and then I'm going to go through the corner stitch, and I always like to just like turn it around because sometimes I didn't go through the corner like I thought. Okay, but I'm right in the corner. So that way I'm all lined up now. Okay, and I'm going to pull my tail through to the front. It's already been sealed with a slip stitch, and I yanked the tail back out so it's knotted. It's not gonna be coming out. So now I've got my tack in the corner, and then whenever it's the corner stitch, I like to do another pass through. So I insert through all four loops, both loops from both motifs, and then just front to back again. You're gonna insert the hook front to back the whole time during whip stitch. Okay. So now I'm ready. Everything's lined up, and I'm ready to start whip stitching across. I'm going to go into my next stitch and insert the hook through both loops, and then I'm going to go do the same thing for the other motif. So I've got both on there, and then I'll just simply grab the tail and just pull it through to the front. And here's the kicker. I'm gonna do a couple more stitches, and once you get going, you won't really have to check the back anymore just to make sure. But when you're in the corner, the stitches kind of look all the same, so it's kind of difficult to tell which one's which. So what you're gonna do here, whenever you're pulling your yarn through to the front, you don't want to cinch it up. And sometimes folks will, and that's totally fine. But how I do a whip stitch, I don't pull on the yarn to tighten all the stitches. You totally can, and it looks great. But I like the way that it looks when the stitches sit on top, and I'll show you in a second. So what I'm doing is with these two fingers, I'm just making sure you can see my little purple stitches there, and I'll kind of point them out just in case it's a little bit difficult to see with all that. But it's just like, there's a stitch, there's a stitch. Okay, so I'm not yanking it snug, but I am like making sure that I just put a little bit of tension on the yarn tail when I'm pulling it through. So I pull it through and then use my fingers to just like give it that ever so much tension, but I'm definitely not cinching up on it. You would know if you were cinching because you would be pulling all the rest of the stitches, and that's what you don't want. You want it to like be snug but not tight, if that makes sense. So, and like I said, that's just how I do. I always do whip stitch that way. If there's another way that you prefer to do it, please do. This is just all about making it your own, and I believe that with cooking recipes and crochet patterns alike, it's always better to make it your own, add your own spin on it, and then you'll fall in love with it even more when you've made your little personal tweaks. Okay, so I'm just going to go across here because this whip stitch is really fast. And I'll show you guys when you open it up, you have like these magic little stitches. And then what I'm going to show you is what happens when you meet the corner and it's like one motif coming up to two motifs, if that makes sense, when you're adding the third hexagon of like the hexagon trio, if you will. What do you do at that corner? So when you meet to the corner, which I'm there, like I said, at the corners, I do one more tack. I put it through and just go through one more time in the corner. Then I'll do like through both again, and then just do my my slip stitch. That way I can pull it. And then I just, whenever I'm sewing it all up, like whenever I'm weaving ends, I'll take this to the back like that. Just take it to the back. All right. So now we're good. So you've got your stitches lying across the top like that. Good. And you can hardly really tell where they are, but if you can see them, they're going through like that, kind of like diagonally. And then when you open it, if this yarn has so many different colors in it, so it's a little bit difficult to find the stitches, but I guess that's not a bad thing, right? But if you can see them, they're here, just going diagonally like that. And I think it looks good this way versus cinching up the yarn. And also you're like risking breaking the yarn, and I just don't feel like it's happy. I just feel like the crochet is not as happy if you're cinching it. And then you can like yank on this, and there's like a little give, you know? If you go to block it, even like it can like stretch more, whereas if you cinched it, it's really got nowhere to go. And it's still snug. I mean, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room here, but I feel like it's just nice. So, and it's really flat. Whip stitching is like super flat. Here's the back. Everybody wants to see the back side. So the back looks a lot like the front, just, you know, real flat. And that's because we went through both loops really, because the front would have like the top loop showing if I didn't. So yeah, that's it. So that's how it looks, where this is going to be the edge where I show you guys the striped corner in a minute. And I'm going to make 2 separate videos for it though, just in case anybody wants to look at it separately. But you can see it's super good. So I really like whip stitch, and I hope it works for you guys. And that's it. Hope you guys learned something new today, and I will see you guys in a second. When I've kind of worked up these little deals, I'm going to show you guys what you do when you're adding a third hexagon up to where 2 hexagons have already met. All right, so I'll show you guys that in just a sec. Okay, so I've joined 2 other motifs, and the Archive colors are like super pretty. I'm joining on the 3rd hexagon that meets 2 motifs that are already joined. So if I wouldn't have told you this, you would have been like, wait, what do I do here? So I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So I'm at the center stitch is the one I'm about to work now. That's kind of like how much I've joined up to. I've joined one side, and now I'm at the center stitch, which is like in the little corner. So what you're going to do is just go through both loops on one center, and I gotta find it. I'm gonna have to peek over my camera here. Okay, both loops on one center. Good, pull through, and then go through the same center and go through both loops on the other center. Okay, and so you're just going through the center of this one twice. And then you just keep on going, joining your side. So when you pull it back, your corner looks totally fine because you've got both centers taken care of. You don't want to leave one hanging and then you'll see a space there. So you've got to work through the center twice. Now, what if it's the opposite? What if you're joining and you're on this side of it? Then what you'll do, like if you're joining this way. So if you started with this tail, then you're going to be kind of meeting 2 hexagons to one other hexagon motif. So the same thing, you're going to go through the first center and the center on the single hexagon, and then you're going to go through the next center and then also the same center from here. So either way, you end up working on the 3rd hexagon twice. And once you join this side, then you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and join that side just so I can show you how it looks when they're all joined up. Plus, this project is just so stinking pretty. I just can't stop sharing it. So I will be right back. Okay, you guys. So this is how my blanket looks so far. And I'm going to join up this half hexagon. And then I'm going to see you guys in a few when we do this striped corner. And that is pretty much it for this video. Here's how our motifs look when they're joined. I just love whip stitching. I don't call it sewing because I use my crochet hook. I don't use a needle. So I know it's technically not crocheting, and Ravelry wouldn't let me add it as a joining motif because it's not crochet. It's because it's sewing, technically. So I'm like refuse to say that I'm sewing motifs together because I'm so like anti sewing motifs together, mostly because I'm terrible at it. But I find when I whip stitch, I can do a really good job, and I use my crochet hook because I just can't be bothered to change notions in the middle of my work, and I think it comes out great. So highly recommend, and hopefully you guys can learn something new from this, and I will see you guys on the next Dutch Rose Crochet Along video. Bye guys, happy crafting.